Hello everyone and welcome to the UK Tonight Highlight Show, the show that's all about you and what you're talking about. Coming up, I speak to Caitlyn Jenner, part of the Kardashian dynasty, on fame, fortune and whether trans athletes should be allowed to compete in women's sport. Plus, we'll hear from the Scottish golf fan who became an internet sensation after his Ryder Cup celebrations. But first, in the week that junior doctors and hospital consultants staged their biggest ever strike, I want to bring you Kevin's story. Kevin was 40 years old, a father, and he worked as an accountant for the NHS. He died after waiting 6 weeks for a doctor's appointment in Liverpool. Failed his mum, Adette believes, at every turn. Well, I spoke to Adette and Kevin's sister, Nicola.
Adette and Nicola, thank you so much for talking to me today. This is all still very raw for you. Kevin's funeral was only a couple of weeks ago, so I really appreciate you taking the time to share his story with us today. Adette, perhaps you can take us back to April of this year, which is when this all started. Kevin knew something was up.
Yeah, he'd had COVID at Christmas. Obviously, with having Crohn's disease, his immune system's not the greatest, so it took him a while to recover. And in the meantime, he hadn't been having his treatment, which are injections that he gave himself. They'd lost his blood tests, so until he'd had them redone, he'd had no treatment. But come April, he just said, I'm feeling, he was back on his injections, but he just said, I feel absolutely awful. I've no energy. He was struggling to eat, and he was just sleeping all the time. And, you know, he just knew something. He just was very, very unwell.
First port of call for Kevin, as it would be for any of us, is to pick up the phone to your GP to try to get an appointment. Adette, what happened with that?
He would phone up every morning at 8 o'clock and be told there's no appointments available. By the time he finally got through, after being on hold for half an hour more, they were told all the appointments have gone, try again tomorrow. And this went on for 6 weeks.
This is a story that's going to resonate with so many people watching, because that's what's happening at GP surgeries across the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as your clock turns 8 o'clock, you pick up that phone and dial, redial until you can get through. Nicola, it got to the point where, as Adette said, it was 6 weeks. Kevin actually went to the GP surgery and sat outside until the receptionist came to open up. Yeah.
I think he'd had a couple of telephone appointments, but again, it's not the same. It's not face-to-face. They can't see him. They can't do observations. And I think at one point they told him to buy a blood pressure machine to do his own observations. But yeah, that day he was so desperate. He walked to the surgery and sat on the steps and he got seen, but you shouldn't have to do that.
That's the worry, isn't it? You know, taking out the in-person appointments, so much can be missed. And while it may not have saved Kevin's life, you know, he had cancer. You know, when he got those symptoms in April, often a sign with liver cancer, when you are presenting with symptoms, that's when it's really bad. But the quality of life he could have had in those final months, the treatment to prolong his life, to give him time with his family, with his son.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was taken away with him because he couldn't see somebody and sit opposite them like we are now?
Absolutely. In the April, he was training his football team. He ran an under-7s football team, which he'd set up for his son. He was going to the training in whatever weather, you know, twice a week for the games that they did. He was still working as best he could, because obviously he wasn't married. He was on his own. He had a mortgage. He had to pay child support. He wanted to do things for his son. So he could not afford time off work. By the time they diagnosed him, it was like he was just waiting to die, wasn't it? It was horrific.
In terms of cutting waiting lists and the Prime Minister's pledge, how do you feel about that? Given what you've experienced, do you think it's realistic? What do they need to do?
It's not realistic, and I actually think it'll just be another way to work the numbers to make it look like we're achieving this. And like you say, there's so much going on in the background.
It's not a new problem. We knew years ago, or the government would have known years ago, that there's going to be more demand for services. You can't just train a doctor overnight. It takes years and years. So it should have been recognised before it got to this point.
What is it you want people to take away from speaking today, and what do you want to change? If people working in the upper echelons of the NHS or people in government are listening, what do you want them to take away from Kevin's story?
Before COVID, the NHS struggled every winter, but at the end of the day, they have a duty of care to people. That person isn't just a person, it's somebody's son, brother, father. They're letting people down. And they need to actually listen to people. You know, people, you know your own body. And if somebody needs to be seen and telling you what's wrong, you know, see them, help them.
Yeah, for me, it's just awareness to hopefully it can reach out to just one person and keep nagging at your doctors, your healthcare professionals. And as Mum said, you know your own body. So if you have got a worry, take notice of it and keep pestering and demand that you get the help and support you need, because for Kevin it's too late now.
Yeah.
But hopefully for others, they'll get the help they need.
Well, a big thank you to Adette and Nicola for telling Kevin's story to us here on the UK Tonight. In response to Kevin's story, a spokesperson from NHS Cheshire and Merseyside had this to say: "Our thoughts are with Kevin's family. Whilst we are unable to comment on individual cases, we would encourage anyone experiencing symptoms that they are concerned about to come forward as soon as possible. Although NHS services are busy, help is still available for those who need it, and we encourage people to contact their GP practice or NHS 111 if more urgent." Now, the family of a woman murdered by her husband say they are overjoyed that parental rights laws are about to be changed in her name. Jade Ward was killed by Russell Marsh in 2021, just days after their marriage had broken down. He snuck into her home, stabbed and strangled her while their 4 children slept in their beds. Horrific, but incredibly, the story gets worse. After he was jailed, Marsh was still legally responsible for the children. He was allowed to regularly contact Jade's parents, asking for photos of the children and their school reports. He had control over where they could travel, what medical treatment they could receive, and he used that power over Jade's grieving family repeatedly. Well, now the government says it will introduce Jade's law, automatically stripping people who kill their spouse of any parental rights. Earlier, I spoke to Jade's parents, Karen and Paul, who have campaigned relentlessly for this change. As her next of kin, her mum and dad, of course, the boys came to you and you would have wanted to shield them from what had happened, protect them, concentrate on looking after them, but you couldn't do that because of the parental rights that Russell Marsh still had. Talk to me about what that was like.
Right, well, the boys are with family, close family, but knowing that he had parental responsibility, it was just, you know, horrendous, to be honest, you know, knowing that, you know, that like he could still, you know, he could ask questions and he could send messages and he could goad us and he could ask for silly things that like he knew we didn't have. He wanted the boys to be took away from Jade's family and placed into care. According to Marsh, this is all Jade's fault.
Just to put it into context for our viewers, you know, only a handful of people in this country have actually had parental responsibility taken away from them when they have committed crimes such as Jade's former partner did. You've obviously found this a massive relief, and this will help families who are going through what you're going through. Talk to me about what this means to you as a family. How are the boys? Because at the end of the day, you're doing this for them.
Yeah, the boys are doing really well. I mean, really well. You know, they're in a strong, supportive, loving family. They talk about Jade all the time, you know, they talk about their mum all the time. But us as a family, you know, the fact that Jade's death is going to help families in the future, she'll be proud.
It's just been so it's been so difficult for us to keep dragging this up, you know, being on TV, and it's been so hard, but the outcome is, for the boys and for everyone else, and it's actually happened, it's just blown us away.
We are doing this so no other family have to go through the pain, the hurt, the upset, the stress, the trauma of having to deal with losing Jade anyway, but then having to deal with worrying, what's he going to do now, or what's he going to say now? And the fact that early next year, no family will ever have to worry about that. You know, no family will have to sit there day in, day out, and be really concerned, you know, that like he might get his own way and have the boys taken away from the family.
Well, Karen and Paul, it is...
You know...
Karen and Paul, this is a huge achievement. This measure, Jade's law, is going to be introduced to Parliament as part of the Victim and Prisoners Bill. Jade would be immensely proud of both of you. It's been long. It's been exhaustive. It's been upsetting. But you've got there. Thank you so much for talking to us about Jade's law.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One American family has had a huge impact on popular culture globally, particularly here in the UK. The Kardashians became the most famous family on the planet from their reality TV show and their savvy use of social media. They are a billion-dollar female dynasty that has inspired a whole generation to strive to do the same. Well, Caitlyn Jenner was there for it all, and she is part of a new Sky documentary, House of Kardashian, that shows you how they did it without the glossy filters. When you look at what has been created, do you think it's good or bad? Because I think there's an interview with Kim in the documentaries that asks that question. Is what they created good or bad?
Well, we live in America where dreams can come true if you work hard, if you're smart. You can, even if you start with nothing, but you got good ideas and you're willing to work. I remember Kimberly a couple of months ago. She was kind of getting fed up with a lot of these young people that are growing up and really don't want to work, but they all want fame and they all want to be on Instagram and have a lot of followers and all that sort of stuff. And Kimberly, because of her success, she said, look, that's, you know, how do you get to where I'm at? You get up in the morning really early and you go to work. And you work all day long and you're really smart. And then when you get home, you get some sleep and you go back the next day and you work again. You work. That's how you get here.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It did spawn a whole movement and a whole generation who, like you said, wanted to be famous for being famous. Like you said, the girls talked about the hard work that goes on behind it, but people wanted to be on reality TV. They wanted to have, you know, millions of Instagram followers. What would you say, what advice would you give to parents whose children, when you say, what do you want to be when you grow up, say, I want to be a YouTuber or I want to be famous? I wonder if you have any regrets about what happened to your family and if you could offer any advice.
I don't have any regrets with my family. Why? Because they know how to handle it. They've been doing this since the beginning, I mean, for a long time. And they've had the highs, they've had the lows. They've learned a lot. They know more than I do. I mean, they're out there all the time. They're very sharp. So, and because of that, they've built tremendous businesses. You know, Kylie, who I had no idea. I mean, she always had this fascination with makeup. And when we started the show, Kylie, I think, was 9, Kendall was 10 or 8, 9, and 10, somewhere right around there. And Chris and I decided they were going to put everything that they made until they're 18 in a trust. And so everything went there. So when the girls turned 18, they had a nice little nest egg of, you know, years of working and all put away for them.
They did rather well, didn't they? Because one's a supermodel and now one's a billionaire. So you must be extremely proud of your girls.
Well, I got 2 billionaires right now. And I think the third one's probably on the way.
On their way, 3 billionaires.
Yes, they're creeping in. I can't tell you which one, but yeah. Very,
I'm sure
very
our viewers
close.
can hazard a guess.
Yeah, and they've been extraordinarily successful.
New rules with the World Athletics ban on trans women competing in women's events, cycling doing something similar, swimming creating a separate event for trans women, but nobody wanted to compete in that event. Where do you stand on trans women being in sport? And it's such a mess. What do you think is needed to sort it out? Because it's become really toxic.
The only thing you can do, I have been very clear on this subject for the last couple of years. From the Leah Thomas thing, you know, back in the U.S. In swimming, trans women should not be competing in women's sports. Bottom line.
If you'd have transitioned when you were at the height of your career, what would you have done? Do you think?
I never would have done that. I wouldn't. No, I never would have. You got to I realize that if you're going through a transition, you're going through that. There's some things you can do and some things you can't do. Okay. You can't say, I am not this trans person that goes, I am a woman and, you know, everybody else just quiet down, you know, and you better use the right pronouns. And I am not that, okay? I'm not even close to that, okay? I am a young person. I'm a person that suffered from gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is real, okay? It is real. And it needs to be treated in your own way. But it's very small. There's very few people in the country that really are truly gender dysphoric. And but I suffered with it my whole life. If you had a chance to read my book, Secrets of My Life by Caitlyn Jenner.
I know, it's from being a small
and
child.
I go through the whole thing, the sneaking around, the lying, the behind closed doors, everything. And I suffered with this my whole life. I raised families and suffered with it, and on and on and on. And I finally got to the point in my life with dealing with gender dysphoria, that here I was, like 65 years old. I had done this my whole life. That I'm sick and tired of this. You know, I got to live my life. All my kids are raised. Everything's been done.
Now, he is the man who meets and greets the nervous singletons on one of my favourite shows, who are not only on a first date, but they're also doing it on national television. And he makes sure that they're nice and comfortable, gives them a drink and listens to their stories before they meet up. But tonight, Merlin Griffiths is here to tell us his story. He was diagnosed with bowel cancer in 2021. After life-saving treatment on the National Health Service, he has been clear of the disease for more than a year now. And Merlin is with me in the studio. Merlin, it's so great to see you.
Sarah-Jane, thank you.
You talked to us on a day when the biggest strikes in NHS history have come to an end. And you are a massive fan of the NHS because they literally saved your life. Talk to me about your experience with the NHS, because you were under their care for a long time after your diagnosis.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the total care plan initially will run up to 5 years, and then even then they're checking in on you up to 10 years. Beyond 10 years, well, it's anyone's guess what happens after that. I think that's you're about as cured as you're ever going to be from a cancer point of view at that point. But yeah, no, I just want to say, I mean, I understand some of the frustrations that people have around the NHS, but at the same time, when it works, oh boy, does it work. Yeah. And especially when it comes to cancer. Once you've been diagnosed, the machinery kicks in, because it's imperative that you're treated quickly. It's imperative that certain steps are taken, because, as you say, this is life-saving. And in my case, I was absolutely blown away by the speed of referrals, by the speed of appointments, by the speed of medication, and eventually by the speed of operation. Yeah, it all just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And next thing you know, you're like that.
Yeah, you are. And you had a scan at the start of this summer. It was your 1-year scan, and, you know, you, along with the cancer community on social media, were talking about it because you've shared your stories on social media to raise awareness of bowel cancer, and you talked about scanxiety, and you got the all clear on that 1-year scan, which is great news. But talk to me about why you wanted to be so public about it and share your story on social media.
Yeah, it was a difficult decision, and one my girlfriend and I didn't take lightly at the time, because, yeah, your natural instinct with something like this is to keep it quite private. But then you suddenly realise, well, I'm lucky enough to have a platform which, you know, a few people might listen to, and so maybe we can actually turn some good out of this. And, you know, since I've actually had friends that have gone and got themselves checked and had various symptoms that they wouldn't otherwise have had checked, in fact. 2 of them have had polyps removed and things like this, which is one of the possibly precancerous stages. Not all polyps turn into cancers, and it's encouraging to hear that it works.
did you see this incredible moment from the Ryder Cup at the weekend?
One more time. One more time.
A Scottish golf fan getting a little excited after Team Europe beat Team USA, leaping into the water on the 16th hole to huge support from the crowd. He has become an internet sensation, with the video racking up millions of views online over the last 24 hours or so. And I'm very glad to say the man of the moment, John Burley, joins me now. John, I feel like you won the Ryder Cup. Talk me through what was going through your mind after Team Europe won and you headed towards the lake.
Well, at the time, it was really to cool off. It was such excitement, and we were all stewing with the heat. It was 33 degrees, and it was such a drama, very dramatic. And so earlier on, we had seen the promotions of the players jumping in the water in the promotional videos that interrupted every now and again. And it kind of put a seed in my head. And so when it came to the moment, there was that little gap, and I just went for it, to be honest with you.
I love that. And Tommy Fleetwood's caddy nearly tackled you. You just dodged him and jumped into the lake not once, but 3 times, and came out to lead a Viking clap as well. And did you expect the kind of response you got afterwards? Because you became one of the stars of the Ryder Cup. Quite a few selfies, people coming up to talk to you.
Yeah, it was quite surprising. And, well, the crowd were behind me, right? There's no denying that, with their cheers and the clapping and their singing. You know, it was a very happy, joyous occasion. And actually, when I came out of the water, Molinaro, he came up and congratulated me, and he says, "Well done," and shook my hand, and he says, "That was good." So that was a nice, positive statement.
That's all for this week. Join us again for the UK Tonight on Monday at 8 p.m.